Hey, these are my top tips to survive the campaign. These are mostly tips for the upcoming gauntlet, but they're still useful in general. Tip number 1. Try to get hybrid armor evasion equipment. I've set this POB as a level 17 ranger to highlight the strength of base armor evasion equipment. So I have 3 different item sets prepared. Each of these sets have items with the same modifiers, which is benchcrafted life and nothing else. The only difference between these sets is the type of base used. The configs are set against enemy attacks, which is mostly what you're going to encounter in the campaign anyway. The main number we want to look at is the effective hit pool, also known as EHP, as it's a strong indicator of your character's survivability. So, this is how much EHP a level 17 character has with energy shield based gear versus with evasion based gear. As you can see, it's more than double the EHP. And then if you use hybrid evasion armor based gear, it's more than double again. But EHP is not the whole picture. To assess your character's survivability, you must multiply your effective HP with your recovery. Which brings me to tip number 2. Upgrade your life flask and roll them if you have extra alterations. Recovery is your best defense and life flasks are your best recovery. Now you should obviously upgrade them as soon as you can, but there are 2 major power spikes for life flask that are drastically more important than the rest. At level 18 you unlock the Grand Life Flask, which has twice the life recovered per second compared to the level 12 Greater Life Flask. The next power spike is at level 42, which is usually around Chamber of Innocence. This is the Hallowed Life Flask, which has almost 2000 life recovered over 4 seconds. The 4-second part is not that great, but the 2000 life recovered is a big jump from the previous flask, which makes for a very strong Panic Flask if you can craft it with Transmute and Alteration until you hit any of the instant recovery prefixes, which will only take on average 4 alterations. Tip number 3, this one is specific to Affliction League. You should absolutely rush Oath of the Magi. With Oath of the Magi you get plus 50% to all resistances from not having any gems socketed in your helmet, and 30% movement speed if you can also afford it in your boots. The 50% all res is broken, especially in the early game where you can barely get 30% resistance as in single piece of gear. This will allow you to be easily res capped while prioritizing, you guessed it, armor evasion bases with benchcrafted life. This is in fact so broken that I'll personally never socket any gems in my helmet throughout the gauntlet. The Warden can show up in level 16 zones and up, so I would rush the Broken Bridge and spam the Wildwood searching for yellow trails as soon as I feel that my character is strong enough to handle level 16 Wildwoods, which can be quite rippy actually. So tip number 4, we have check vendors for life resistance gear. You can use this regex here, which I will paste in the description. You can just copy paste it from the description to the search box in your vendor window, and it will highlight any piece of gear that has life or resistance on it. And you're gonna find some cool simple gems, like you can find some, maybe you're gonna find a coral ring that has all resistance on it, on a magic item, and then you can benchcraft life because it has an open prefix. You're gonna definitely find about 5 or 6 really good piece of gear that is gonna be good enough for the campaign. And tip number 5, we have take your time. Overlevel by killing a lot of monsters, especially the magic monsters. Your character gets a lot stronger through level, so overleveling is going to prevent a lot of deaths. Hardcore solo self-found, and even more so the gauntlet, is a marathon, not a sprint. So kill a lot of monsters, especially the magic monsters. Here's a list of all the good leveling zone and until what level you can stay there before the experience penalty becomes too punishing. Finally, I'm going to give you guys a bonus tip here. It's about the magic pack of monsters in Chamber of Innocence and in Blood Aqueduct. They are the 2 best zones to farm by a huge margin, and while it is partly because the layout and density is amazing, it's also because you can guarantee a lot of magic monsters. In Chamber of Innocence, there is a magic pack of monsters guaranteed at the top of each stair, and 4 guaranteed magic packs at the end of the zone before the boss. And in Blood Aqueduct, you know how it's a very linear zone from one end to the other? Well, every segment that branches outward into dead ends will have a guaranteed magic pack. So you want to go through those if possible. Oh, and as much as possible, stay on the top right side of the aqueduct. The density on the top right is generally better because some mechanics like Alva, Nico, and Expeditions can only spawn on the bottom left side, and these mechanics prevent monster spawns too close to them. So just try as much as possible to always cross the bridges, to always stay on the top side. So that's it for tips on how to survive the campaign. If you have any tips that you'd like to share, write them in the comments and I'll try to pin them if they're useful. And if you're playing the upcoming Gauntlet, I'm interested to know what build are you going to play. Anyway, good luck and I'll see you guys next time.